Hi, welcome to Android. In today's class, we'll be creating the activity class called expense item activity. So if you recall this, we were discussing about interactivity communication. In this interactivity communication, we have developed in the previous session expense activity class, and in this session we will be developing about expense item activity class. So let us go to our Eclipse and we'll see that how we can do that. So this was the expense activity class just developed in previous session. Let me close all of this. Let us create a new class. We'll call it expense item activity. Package name will be same. Nothing changes there. Here it will be expense item activity. Okay, and here as usual put activity, and that's pretty much it. We'll clear. So this creates the basic expense item activity. Now what is the layout for this activity? So I have a very basic simple layout which I have created called expense item XML. If you remember, the previous one was this one, trip expense, and this is expense item. So when you click this add expense item here, basically it brings this layout. Okay, so right now we are going to use this layout and create a class called expense item activity. Now this add expense done, there are two buttons. This is the name of the expense, this is the price. So when I will say add expense, this name and price, this price get added, and if I do it 3 times, 4 times, it will add all of that and show the total when I do that done. So this is what we are going to develop. So how we will go, let me show you the XML layout of this one. It is just a text view, edit text, and then at the end there are two buttons. Okay, expense item add, expense item done. These are the two buttons, and these are the edit text and text view. So here is this. You can create your own text view and do this. Now how to develop the code for this one? Let us start it. It is very simple. The same thing we'll do it here what we did for the previous class. Implements Onclicklistener. Okay, we'll say use this one. Don't use the dialog interface. Use this one. Then it will say add unimplemented methods, and this was for the on click. Okay, now let us declare our variable. First thing in every class is declare variables. So the variable we'll declare is item name et, and then there is another variable for the price. So there are two edit text boxes. One is called item name. Let us import this one. So when you declare a new class, it will not import, so you can import it. And then there are two buttons as well. So button variable add item underscore bt, and then another button is that called done underscore bt. Import this class, import button, you are done. And then another variable to store the total price after adding all the expenses. So all the expenses which will be added will be stored in a variable called total price. Okay, and if you let me just open the class which I had developed earlier called expense activity. Okay, so here there is a total expense as well. Total expense here, and then here is also a total expense. So this is total price. I have named it. You can name it anything. This one is used internally, and the value is stored back to this one. So we'll see how it happens, but just declare these three variables, And the next one is that use onCreate. So onCreate will be always there, and to start with we'll say that what is the total price, we'll call it total expense, that is better. Total expense price equals to expense activity. Let us, what I am doing, I am trying to get the value which is there in the expense activity class. So first is retrieve the value which is there in the expense activity class, and then on top of that, if I am adding anything else, please keep adding. In fact, this one you should do before this one. Ideally, set content view r.layout dot, you know what is the layout, expense item, correct. So this is what we'll do, and then as usual we'll declare the variable for both the button and both the edit text. So if I have to do this, take these two buttons, okay, and then find view by ID r.id dot, what is the name of that button? Expense item add button, correct. What is the name of the done button? It is, everything will be same, just the ID will be different. So let us do that. We'll just put here like this, and we know that what is the ID? Done underscore BT. Now let us do it, declare the variable for edit text, okay. So we'll just do it quickly here. Name, just be careful about putting the ID, because most of the time what happens is the moment you put the wrong ID, the behavior will be unpredictable. So just be a little careful. Like here I have put the item name, it should have been something different. Item price, this one, correct. So once you have done with these two, what is the next thing you have to do is that add the Onclicklisteners. So for both of this, let us copy these two buttons, and we'll add Onclicklistener for these two buttons, okay. So let us do like this, dot set Onclicklistener, and we know that this class has implemented this interface, so this class, object of this class can be treated as a listener object, and that I am going to associate with this button. So that's why I am passing this object. Same I will do for next button. So now we are done. Now next what we have to do, implement is this one. So if you remember here, what we have done is that we have two buttons. One is called view ID, expense item add, and other is expense item done. So you remember the logic of this one? It was same like expense activities. So why don't we just copy the some of the code and then we'll modify it if it is okay with you guys. So I just copied and paste one. So this part will remain as it is. Here it will change because the button IDs are different here. What is the button ID here? First one is expense item add. So expense item add. And the second button is expense item done. So expense item done. Done? Good. Now let us remove the code which is inside this. I don't want to have anything like this. We'll build our own logic. Okay. So here is where we will put the logic. Now what is the logic you want to put? Very simple. What we'll do is that we'll check what is the total price at that point of time, and in the same total price we'll add the price which user is entered in the screen here. So whatever user is entering here, when I click add expense, from the previous total he will add this one, right? So this is what I am going to do, total price, and I have written a small method called get expense price. Now this method I have not yet defined, so hold on to that. I will create one. And there is most important thing is that if I click the next button in this one done, then it should go back to this screen, and that is where I call the method called send back result. Now this one also I will define very soon, so stay with me. So what I have done is that I have created inside on click, if you click the expense item add, you will put get expense price. If you click done button, then it will go to send back result. Now get expense price and send back result are the two methods which I have not yet defined. So why not I just go ahead and define two methods. Okay. Now let us go ahead and define these two methods, get expense name and get expense prices. Now I will define a get expense price method, something like this, public, and basically it should be private, not public, private get expense price, like this. Okay. And what do you put inside this? Very simple. You are going to read it what the user has entered at that point of time. So it will say return integer dot parse, and here we'll say the text box name. What is the name of text box? Item price underscore et dot get text dot to string. Okay, so this is what it will do. Integer dot parse int, okay. Now this one will what this is doing is that it is just calculating the price, taking the price what the user has entered and returning it back. Now let me see. You have to give the return type, and so this part is taken care of. So whatever is the price the user has entered, it will convert into an integer and it will add to the existing total price and it will set the total price. Now send back result, what it does? Send back result has a very interesting concept as well. We'll call it send back result, and it will be again private void send back result. Okay, doesn't takes any argument. It is like this. But what exactly this is doing? This guy is basically passing the control. This method, what does it do? Let us spend few minutes on this. This method basically passes the data and control back to the activity which invoked it. This is very important. Okay, and how it does that? See how it does that. What I am doing, first I am going to create an intent, and this intent object is basically going to store the data which I want to pass back. So create an intent and we'll call it return intent. Return intent equals to new intent. Just give some name, returned result, like this. if result code equals to result OK. So that is what it is, the middle one. And then we have to also check if the request code is same. Request code ID if that is the case, then we'll do something. So if that is the case, then take the value out from that total. So we'll take out the total which was passed from the child activity and store it to the parent activity. And how do we do that? Get int extra like this. And what is the name of the variable in which we have passed in that? It was new total. Okay. And then we'll take out that value and then set it into the local system et.set text. Again we'll convert string to integer, integer to string, okay. So now in the local edit text box, total expense, whatever was passed here in the past total, I put it here, convert it into a string, and then put it into this one. After that, I will also initialize the local variable for total expense equals to past total, so that in case the user goes again to add the item and does it. Now once you do this, you are pretty much done. And what you have to do here is that now that expense item activity class is ready, so you can uncomment this part. So what I am going to do is that now I will uncomment this and then it should work fine. Now let us close this one and review this code one more time, what we wrote. Expense item activity, there is a semicolon missing. So this is the expense item activity class we wrote. This is a child activity which is opened from expense activity. Declare the variables, buttons, edit text, set the listener. In onClick, if you are saying add, then capture the price and add it to the current total price. If it is showing done, then just send the result whatever is the current total price. Send back result, very simple. Take the current total price, put it in a variable called new total. New total is T small. If you want that, then check out here what was the T you are trying to get back. It is capital T. So it will not work. So make it new total. So once we are done with this one, expense item activity.java here, we are pretty much done. Okay. Send back result, get expense prices. The next thing we have to do is that declare this new expense item activity in the Androidmanifest.xml file. So why don't we just go ahead and do that? Every time you declare create a new activity, it has to be defined in the Androidmanifest.xml file. So that's what we have to do, expense item activity. Now let us do the save and we'll try to run this code. And if there is any problem, we'll see. Now let us go back to expense item. So when I click expense, this comes, the total price is now 0. So let us go and add expense item. We'll say add expense item and we'll name something like coffee. If you want to remove this key, just push the back button, coffee, and I will say 5 rupees or something. And then I will click add expense. You can display a message here as well, that coffee got added, but I have not put a message or something, but you can put again. Now let us assume that I want to put one more expense called tea, and that is for 2 rupees. I'm just doing this one to remove this keyboard, and then I will click add expense. Now after adding coffee and tea for 5 and 2, I am done. So now when I go back, total it shows as 7 rupees. Now I want to add few more items. So add expense item, I will say burger, and here for burger is expensive, so 10 rupees. So I will say remove this keyboard and then click add expense, and then I will say now I am done. So now it is 17. So it means that our screen going, coming back, storing, and everything is working perfectly fine. So that is just a way to show that how the interactivity communication happen and how you can pass the data from one activity to other activity.